Hello everyone, this is Mr. Sikandar. In today's video, we will explore the map function in Python. It's a powerful tool that allows you to apply a function to each item in a iterable, like a list or a tuple or a set. In today's session, we'll be covering how to apply map function with user-defined functions, how to use the map function with lambda, which is an anonymous function, how do we apply map with built-in library functions, and also learn about how do we apply map with methods. Methods are those which need to be invoked using object dot. And finally, we'll also be covering up how to work with maps with multiple iterables. The syntax of the map function is the function name is map. It takes the first argument, which is a function, and second argument is basically an iterable. They can be one iterable or they can be more than one iterable. Now, it applies this particular function on each of these elements in this iterable. And finally, it returns a map object, which is again an iterable. Okay, it returns a map object, which is an iterable. Let's try to understand with an example. Let us say we have a function which basically calculates the square of a given number. We have square. Okay, so we just calculate the square of this given. Fine. So if you want to test this square function, we can just call the square and you can pass some number and you can see the results. It is basically giving me the square. Now you have a list of numbers 1, 3, 5, 8, 12, right? So we have a list of numbers. I'd like to apply the square function for every element in this nums. So one way to do it is you basically run a for loop. You try to access every element. Okay, in this, we can basically call the square and then whatever it returns, we can basically print it. This is one way. But in case if you basically want to capture into a result variable, we can have a result variable here and whatever the values are returned, you can append it into the result list. And finally, you can basically try to print the result. Okay. This is a traditional way where we traverse the elements of the list. And then for every element, we basically call this particular function, the function what you have written here. Okay. And the result value, you can instantly print it or you can capture that into another list and then finally print that final. Now the same operation can be done with the help of a map function where the first argument what you pass is the function what you want to apply. The second argument is the iterable, this one. Okay. Now the map function returns me an iterable object. Okay. So if you just look at the result, you will see that it returns me an iterable object. Okay. If you want, you can capture this. I'll just try to capture this into a variable called as squared. But if I try to print this squared, it will print the same thing like iterable. Now, how do I access the elements? So here, since it's an iterable, I can always run a loop here to access the element from the iterables, and we can just say we can access it. But let's say, no, I don't want to run a loop here. I would like to print the results, okay, without running a loop. So in that case, what I can do is this statement remains the same. Okay. And I know that it has basically returned an iterable object. I'd like to convert it into a list and then I can print it. Okay. Yeah. So in simple terms, we can just see that a map function, we pass on this function what you want to apply for every element of this iterable. Fine. Let's try to take one more example to understand things better. Let us say you have a temperatures. Now, as you know that temperature can be captured in different forms like degree centigrade or degree Fahrenheit. So I would like to capture this temperature, let us say in Celsius. Okay, let us say 33 degrees. Then let us say next it is 35 degrees, then 31 degrees, 28 degrees, 40 degrees. Okay. Now, I would like to convert this from degree Celsius to Fahrenheit. Okay, temperature in Celsius. Let us say I would like to capture it, convert it into Fahrenheit. Now, first, let me try to write a function. Say convert. Okay. Now, this will take up one argument, which is Celsius, which is 1.8 into C plus 32. This is the formula to convert from Celsius to Fahrenheit. Okay. So I have a function here, but I'd like to apply this function on every element of this temperature Celsius. So I'll just try to use map. I'll say convert. Okay. Yes. As we already seen, it returns an iterable. If you want, you can here itself, we can convert it to a list or a tuple. And then we can say temperature in Fahrenheit. And then you can try to print this. Okay. Right. Now, we saw how we can apply map with the user-defined function. And yes, if the function is simple, instead of writing a separate named function, we can always write a lambda directly. Okay, like if I have to redo this particular problems with the help of lambda, yeah, let me try to take up this examples where I had this nums. And I'd like to apply the map function, but I don't want to write a user-defined function like square. I'd like to just use a map. And here, if you do not have a user-defined function, but if you want to write an instant function with the help of lambda, you can just use a lambda here and we can write the code for the lambda here, right? Remember, lambda is an anonymous function. So we can have parameter here followed by the body part of the code. Okay, yes, we have already done the square. So this is also doing the square. Let us try to do a cube here. Okay, so I'll just try to write cubes of this. And yes, I'd like to apply the list conversion function here. And then I try to print. So 1 cube is 1, 3 cube is 27, 5 cube is 125, right? So we can just see here, whenever the function is simple and you have not written a user-defined function already, okay, in that case, we can quickly write the lambda code, fine. Or if you want to do a conversion with the help of like whatever we did here, the same information with the help of lambda here, instead of writing this, I'll just try to write lambda. Okay, let us see. And what is the calculation of that? It is 1.8 or 9 by 5 into C plus 32. Fine. So we can just try to write this. Temp F. And I can try to print it. So please observe this result here and this result here is exactly the same. Fine. Okay. So in both these cases, we basically wrote the function. Here we wrote as a separate function, a user-defined function named as square, or we wrote a function called as convert. And the same thing, we basically did it with the help of anonymous function using the concept of lambda. But let us say we already have a built-in function and I'd like to apply the built-in function to an iterable. Like we have this, let us say some numbers and assume that, okay, we already have this temp F, right? We have this temperature F. But what I could observe here is in temp F, they are basically fractional values. I would like to round off to the nearest integer. So here, if you want to apply the round function for every element of this, I can just use map. I can specify the function name. Remember, this function is a built-in function, round function is a built-in function, and I'm passing the iterable. So again, this returns me an iterable. Okay, so which I'm converting there to list. Remember, we can also convert to tuple. Now here, I'll try to print temp F so that you can see the float values here. And I'll also try to print the rounded off values out here. So 91.4 will be rounded off to 91. 95 is 95. 87.8 is 88. 82.4 is 82. And 104 is 104. Right? So this way we learn that we can apply a built-in function. Okay. Now we might also have a lot of functions which comes from libraries. Like for example, let us say I have numbers and I would like to basically apply square root function. So we do have some numbers. You can say that I do have 9, I do have 25, I do have 81, right? 121, right? Okay. So let us say square. Now I'd like to apply the square root out here. But remember, square root basically comes from the math module. So yes, I need to import the math module. And remember, we can import the model in two different ways. One is import math, where we can refer to any member of the math with the help of math dot. But other way is from math import sqrt. So if you do it in this way, so I don't need to use math dot. I can directly write square root. But if I'm importing this entire module, and in that way, if you want to refer to any function, we have to use the module name dot function name here. You can just see here, it's doing the job. Now the same information, I will try to do it if I have done this way. Specific import of one element, same information. Here, there is no need of using math dot because I can refer to square root directly. Yes, it is basically a library function. This way, you can apply library functions also, right? Let me also use one more example here. Let's say we have strings. Okay. Now, let me try to take up some names here. This is my name, Sikandar. My team members' names here. Right? We have this list of names. I'd like to find out the length of each of these names. Right? So again, if you want to find out the length of each of the names, I can just try to write length function, comma names, and then I can convert it to a list or a tuple, right? And you can see this. I'll try to print names and the length, right? If you want to combine this, yes, you can always combine this and this with the help of zip method. Yeah. So this string has 8 characters, Jitesh has 6 characters, Bhavani has 7 characters, Linu has 5 characters, Atira has 6 characters. Okay. But there are some methods, like for example, they are not global functions. Okay. Please remember, if I wanted to call length function, how do I call the length function? I would just write length of Sikandar. So this is length is not a method, it is a function, meaning we don't use any object before that. Instead, whatever you want, you basically pass it as an argument. But as we know, the string class provides me a lot of methods. Like for example, I'd like to convert these names to lowercase. So I will just try to write, let's say if I have this name, a single name, trying to take it up, I'd like to convert to lowercase. Okay, name dot lower. Okay, this way it will convert it to lowercase, right? Or might be I'd like to convert it to title case, right? Now, same way, I would like to apply this for all the names here. I'd like to apply, like convert everything to lowercase or convert every element in this into a specific title case. So in that case, what I'll like to do it is I'll just try to write map, right? I'll just use str dot. Please remember, here title is not a global function. Upper, lower, they're not global functions. They are methods for which we need to invoke with the help of string object. But here we don't specify the string object name. Okay, instead we say we would like to invoke this method or function from this particular class. The class is str. Okay, and apply this. And then, yes, you can kind of pass it on to the list. And you can see this. Clear? Right. But let me repeat that square root was not a method. It was a function from the module math, whereas this title, upper, lower, they are basically methods of string class. Fine? Okay. Now, map is very commonly used whenever we wanted to convert from one type to other type. Like, for example, um, you have a data, let us say you have a data, okay, but data is in the form of a string, okay. And when I say a string, it's not alphabets, it's basically numbers separated with space. Okay, you have this numbers separated with space. Okay. Now, what I need to do it is I need to convert this into a list of integers. Okay. How do I convert this into a list of integers? First thing is I need to split this. I need to basically split this. So I'll just try to write, okay, numbers equal to data dot split, right? And I'd like to print this. Please observe, data is just one string. It is one string. Whereas after split, you can just see we have a list out here. Okay, but every element here is basically a string. Okay, so if I want to perform the summation of all this, like for example, I'll try to write sum of nums. Okay, sum function is basically used to perform this summation of all the elements, provided everything is an integer. But here they're basically strings. We cannot do this. So I'd like to convert this. So what I can do is I can just use map. Okay, I can pass on the conversion function. Remember, this is the conversion function int. I can pass on this. And yes, if I want, I can capture this back into this. Okay. And then we can just observe, right? So if you want, you can also see what is the nums after conversion out here. It's very commonly used whenever you try to work on problems with, let's say, HackerRank or CodeChef, where the data will be in such a way that you'll be entering multiple numbers in a single line. So in such cases, we basically do this. We accept the entire line, we split the data, then we basically do a conversion. Yes, there are other ways also with the help of list comprehension, but in this session, I'm talking about the map. Fine. Okay. Now the last topic what we're going to study now is map with multiple iterables. Remember, till now we used to only pass one iterable. Okay. Now let us say we would like to pass multiple iterables. Let us say we have first name, first names, and then okay, we have last names. Okay. Now my first name is Muhammad. Okay. And Desh. Okay. All right. I'm just using few names. My second name is Sikandar, Korean, and is Shankar. What I'd like to do is I'd like to combine the first name with the last name of this first name, last name, first name, last name. Okay. So can I use a map? Yes. So how do I concatenate? Yes, either you can write a separate function or you can basically write a lambda code here. So you can just see I have specified the first name, last name. So here this title is not necessary. Okay. If you want the entire thing in full form, you can use it. Otherwise, you can convert your title case as you wish. In between, for the space, I've mentioned this. And I have passed two iterables. First iterable, first names. Second iterable, last names. And the result, whatever I get, I'd like to convert into a list and can capture into result variable as a full name, right? So names. Okay. So here we were basically concatenating it. Just to understand one thing better, with one more example, let us say we have numerators. Okay, some values and denominators. Fine. Now I'd like to perform division. I'd like to perform divisions, right? So you can just observe. I have written a lambda with two parameters. Okay. And then you can just see I'm passing two iterables, numerators and denominators. It'll write 23 divided by 1 is 23 itself. 21 divided by 2 is 10.5. 56 divided by 3 is 18.66. Then 89 by 4 is 22.25 and 32 by 5 is 6.4. Yes, if you want, you can always round off. Okay. If you say that, yes, I would like to round off to two digits. Remember, if you just want to round off to a nearest integer, I can just use a map here. I can use a round, and here I can pass on the result is again an iterable, right? Uh, Okay. So if you want, I'll bring here. If you have already captured into quotients, you can just pass on the quotient. There is no need of repeating here this way. Okay, but yes, I'm just telling you how we can use nesting of maps out here. There's a map, there's already a map. But remember, if you've already calculated here, so there is no need of writing this explicitly. We could just, okay, pass on this quotients. Directly, we could just pass on this quotients, right? Okay. Fine, guys. But assume that, no, I don't want to round off to integer, but I would like to round off to two digits. In that case, this might not work. So I just try to write lambda. So you pass on the number here, okay? And you try to write round off x comma, how many digits you want? You want two digits. So here you can just see same information. And yes, I'm also simplifying this, because since we had already calculated this, I could just write the quotient direct. If you have not calculated, okay, one line is sufficient, but yes, since you already calculated, I will always write this. Whenever you write a code, please make sure that uh, you need to give a lot of importance on readability of the code. Okay, it's not just about, okay, writing least number of lines, it's basically readability. Okay, so I hope the concepts of map is clear, right? See you in the next video. Thank you.